welcome to biology. We're still in Unit 2B. We're talking about chemistry of life, and we're going to focus on amino acids and proteins today. I have to talk about amino acids to get you to the understanding of how proteins work. So your warm-up in class will be to just explain what some of your basic favorite protein-based foods are. Even if you're a vegetarian, you should still have some protein-based foods. Okay, the big idea again for this half of the unit is to find evidence to explain how carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and we're going to talk about one of those other specific elements today, form the four major molecules. The learning targets we're going to address explain the structure of amino acids and proteins, recognize that a polypeptide is a chain of amino acids, and describe the importance of amino acids and proteins to living things, not necessarily in that order. All right, first of all, here are the important roles that proteins play in our bodies and in living things. So support and structure, maintain homeostasis, defend from disease, carry other molecules, and carry chemical messages. So we talked about hormones as lipids yesterday. There are also hormones that are protein-based as well. So this ties into our target of describing the importance of amino acids and proteins to living things. So proteins are composed of one or more amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks. The chains are created with something called a peptide bond, which is what we call the name of the bonds between the amino acids. And then a special protein that we're going to spend a whole section about talking about are called enzymes. We're going to be talking about enzymes a lot, but they basically speed up chemical reactions. And just remember that the three-dimensional structure of proteins is incredibly complicated. So we're only going to be focusing on the basic structure. To look at amino acids in particular, remember that amino acids are the building blocks. They bond together to form proteins. And depending on the different sequence of amino acids, you'll get an entirely different protein. And if you look at this long strand of beads, so everything here in this circle is considered the amino acid. So that's just this small bead at the end of this long chain, to continue with that analogy. So that'd be phenylalanine, and then leucine, serine, and cysteine are the ones that are next to it on the chain, and then all those chains continued on. So if even one of these amino acids in this sequence is out of order or rearranged, you have a whole different protein. I'm going to start that over again. Elements in amino acids, again, C, H, and O, that's CHO. And now we're introducing nitrogen. You don't have to have nitrogen for fats and carbohydrates, but you do for amino acids and proteins. The structure of amino acids is very particular. There is an amino group, and that's going to change. I apologize. The amino group will not change. It's always this. And it's called an amino for the nitrogen here, okay? Carbon in the middle, and then a carboxylic acid group. Why is it called that? Carbon, oxygenic acid, doesn't matter. The hydrogen makes it an acid. Then there's something called a variable side chain, and since we like to make things complicated, we just refer to that as R. It's the R group. And there are 20 different versions of this that there could be attached to this basic structure that make each of those different. So again, the basic backbone never changes. Amino, carbon, carboxylic acid, that's all the same. But this R group can be 20 different versions. The new player, this R group that we found, is different for each amino acid. So glycine, for example, its R group is just a hydrogen. Right there, that orange. Methionine has a 1, 2, 3 carbon, then a sulfur, then another carbon in its backbone. And then lysine, you can see, is 4 carbons, and then a nitrogen in its backbone. And then don't get me started on the aromas, the phenylalanine groups. Those are the circular carbohydrate structures at the end. Wow, okay. The point is, it's a side chain that's very different sizes, different shapes, and different charges. Some of them have like this nitrogen on the end here has a polar nature. All right, so that's going to make a difference. There are 20 of them, like I mentioned. Some of them are not polar. The ones that are, the R groups that are different are these ones that are shaded. There are some that have a positive charge. There are some that have a negative charge, and then there are some that within that molecule itself have two different charges. Very complicated if you let it get that way, but we're not going to learn all those, and these are not required for your test. I'm illustrating just to show you how many different combinations you can make for all the different proteins that you need in your life. All right, what are peptide bonds? Well, here's the thing. This little connection between, in this case, this carbon and this nitrogen, that connected this amino acid to this one, this bond that's formed, that's called a peptide or a peptide bond. So we can say two or more amino acids together is a peptide, or we can reference the bond itself as a peptide bond. All right, one of the other targets we have is to recognize that a polypeptide, poly meaning many, peptide meaning groups of amino acids, is a chain of amino acids. And again, there's a really complicated structure as proteins fold upon themselves. We're only looking at the basic structure. So if you see beads on a chain, that's the basic structure of proteins that I'm going to ask you to remember. So a polypeptide is a long chain of linked amino acids. That's what you have to know. And I've got a really nice illustration here to show you. Just like I said, beads on a chain, they're made all different colors just to help you illustrate that. They're not colored in real life, obviously. But the peptide bond is between two of them, and then we've blown that up so you can look at it better. All right, the last or first, I don't remember, they're not in order, but the target to describe the importance of amino acids and proteins in living things. There are proteins for everything your body uses, from metabolism to cellular processes, hormones to getting things across your cell membrane. I mean, think of the process, a protein is involved. So amino acids are the building blocks. They create chains, they twist together, they fold up, they create a complex shape, which ends up looking kind of like this. And in the long run, they're unrecognizable unless you can memorize their chemical structure, which nobody expects you to do. So how are they important? Everything. They're everything important. All right, so this was the quickest lesson I've done. Yay! Okay, so again, the big idea, explain the structure of amino acids and proteins, recognize that a polypeptide is a chain of amino acids, and the importance of amino acids and proteins in living things. We're going to get into the detail when we practice that in class. But how are you feeling about what we learned about for these targets? Are you red? If you're, okay, I'm not so sure, or, we're in class today, you need to decide and check in with yourself. And I will see you in class. Bye!